Welcome to the Real Life Podcasts with your hosts, leadership and personal growth author and speaker John C. Donahue and licensed psychotherapist Lou Carfisi. The Real Life Podcast is your weekly dose of motivation, encouragement, and direction to help you live your life at the highest level.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Real Life Podcast. My name is John. I come from johncdonahue.com. We'll talk about leadership, personal development, relationships, and I'm a life coach and an author. Each week, my good friend and I are the Real Life Podcast. Lou, how are you doing this week?
I'm doing real well, John. Thanks for asking.
So, Lou, why don't you tell everybody a little bit about yourself?
Okay. My name is Lou Carfisi. I'm a licensed therapist in the state of Georgia, and I can be found at lifecarecounseling.net. And this is what I do for a living. I see people for all kinds of and all varieties of psychological issues, marital problems, victims of abuse. And I work every week, a lot of the week actually, with my best friend John here. And together, we're here to help you.
Exactly. That's exactly what we do. We try to provide a little bit of motivation, encouragement, and direction so that you can live your life at the next level. And the reallifepodcast.com is our website. And you can find us on Facebook at Real Life Podcast and Twitter at Real Life Cast. And what we normally do is every Monday at 3 o'clock, we do a live blab. And how we do it is we do 20 minutes or so of talking, and then we open it up. So we invite you, if you're listening to this, we would love for you to come watch us live. You get to see us warts and all, the oohs, the uhs, the mistakes, the reshoots, and all that good stuff. But before we put it out, we do it live, and we would love to see you here. So all you need is a Twitter account. You come to blab.im, or you can follow a link that you can get on our website. And you can be a part of our chat live audience. We would love to see you here. So this week, we are talking about riding the roller coaster of new people in your life. So let's kind of start setting them up, Lou, for what we're going to be talking about today.
Okay. Would you like me to do that?
I would.
Okay. So here you are. You're living your life, and in comes this new person. The person could be a potential friend, a business partner, or maybe even a possible love interest. Whatever the category they may fall into, we are optimistic about them. I guess it's a good thing. And we give them instant goodwill. We see the good things about them and then make many other assumptions based upon those things that we see when we first meet them.
Right. Now, is that what someone in your field would call projection? Is that more projection? I'm projecting my personality traits or my desires on a person, or is that just pure assumption?
Well, you're projecting your expectations onto them. You're projecting what you see in this person, and you make assumptions based upon that, what you projected on them. And by the way, they didn't ask for it, and they probably don't want it. But right. There you go.
Right. So let's look at some examples of what we're talking about. So if I see someone or you see someone that dresses well, you may or may not believe that their home is spotless. That's one of the thoughts that could go through your mind. Why would we say that?
Well, because we assume that dressing well is tied to cleanliness. We automatically make that assumption. I don't know why, because I've seen some people who don't necessarily have a pristine home that dress meticulously, but we do this.
Right. So we believe that they're a good person. We really like them if their children are well behaved.
We assume people who dress well also are very aware of others' opinions, and therefore they're very meticulous about their lives, which encompasses cleanliness and encompasses keeping their children in the proper behavioral patterns that they see as the right ones.
Mm. We also have a tendency to assume that they are financially secure.
Mm-hmm.
That's tied in because they dress well, so we assume that they make a good living and they can afford those nice clothes.
I guess the basis for this is that we know that there is a certain look that people have that gets them further ahead in the business arena. If in a corporate world, if you're 6'2", you weigh like 180 pounds, and you have the right haircut, that gets you popularity. That gets you looked at and respected just because of the way you look. And we assume people who dress that way are very, very meticulous about their lives, and that they make a good living because they can afford nice clothes and they have that corporate look.
Right. And then the biggie that I've fallen into this trap is we assume that they are honest. And when you assume that people are honest, you just kind of take for granted that they may not be completely truthful. And then we assume that they must be recognized in wherever they work or their business dealings or what they do as people, that they're trusted.
Yeah, and that's really not something that is true at all.
Right.
But we do this, we layer these things upon someone, and one, it dominoes to the other and to the other. We feel they must have been recognized by their place of business as a trusted employee. Otherwise, They wouldn't have nice clothes and wouldn't dress well, and all the other things that are in this stack of assumptions that we put on them.
Right. And the scary thing, when we were putting this together, the scary thing I realized is we've just come up with 4 examples of just something that we make assumptions and put those expectations on people purely on physical looks and what they're wearing. This is before they say anything. This is before we start reading body language. There's all sorts of data that we start interpreting and start putting our expectations on a person. And this is just 4 examples of just when you see somebody across the room and how they dress. That's scary.
It's very scary because we know that what you or how you dress is no indicator on what's inside your heart. What is your character like?
Right.
We like everything about these people. We see these people and we have these assumptions, and we're really ready to make them a close friend. Or if it's a love interest, we're ready to do that too, kind of. And we do them a disservice because they never asked. They never solicited these expectations. We just decided to place them on them. And it's unfair in a lot of ways.
So what are some of those expectations that we're placing on people? And granted, I'll go ahead and state the obvious. We're talking about a broad brushstroke, and your mileage may vary. Your experiences may be different, but this is just some of the things that I think that we've experienced in our lives, and we've both experienced through helping other people. We've discovered and we've discerned that, these are kind of the biggies that we're kind of talking about. So everybody has specific situations, but what are some examples of the expectations and how we deal with it when we meet new people?
Well, we think that they hung the moon. We think that they're just the bee's knees.
Right.
And it really isn't, it's no indicator of how they really are. We trust them immediately with information about ourselves because we believe they will respect our privacy.
Right.
And we get that from the trust that we give them that they don't necessarily have to earn. So it's dangerous in that way.
Right. And this happens not only in, we've talked a lot about how they dress and in the business world, but this is that euphoria that people get when you meet new people, especially if you're in the dating world. You meet somebody new and they're attractive and they're nice, they're funny. And we have this euphoria of, oh my gosh, I've met this person and they're so great and they're so perfect and he's nice, or she dresses nice and she's funny and she's all these things. And we start placing all these expectations on them because of the very first point that you said, we think they hung the moon. You know, and that's when you start getting, like you said, into trouble, because we say and do things that are not always wise.
That's right. And also happens in the workplace. And it's kind of dangerous when it does, because we work with them and we have this vision of them that's high on the pedestal, and we give them the benefit of the doubt, but then they start to make mistakes.
Right.
Mistakes that may impact us or may not, but at least we see them, and we don't know how to take that. So we give them the benefit of the doubt. We put them on a pedestal, and it's neither an earned position, nor is it desired. Right. Most of the time. They're not trying to necessarily impress you. These are the beginnings of some kind of a relationship. Remember, that's how we started this. It's either a personal relationship, friendship, or even a potential love relationship. Right. So we can't give them all these expectations.
Yeah, so we put all that together, and this is how we're framing it. This would be the up portion of the roller coaster. Mm-hmm. This is where they're on that proverbial pedestal, and like all things that go up, eventually they must come down, and sometimes they come down in a very violent manner. So that's the up portion of the roller coaster. Lou, let's talk about the down portion.
Well, like people say, once you're on the top, there's only one direction you can go from there, and it's down. So we start, spending a little bit of time with this person. We get to a point where we find out that they're just like us. In what way? Well, they're like us in that they have flaws, just like we do. That the things that we thought about them were not accurate. And they don't think they're accurate either. They're just people. We're all the way we are. They have talents, abilities, good characteristics, and not so good talents and abilities and good things about them. And this is just being human. This is just who we are as people. And we have to give people some of the benefit of the doubt at first when we meet them, because otherwise we'd never make a friend or never have any kind of relationships. You buy that there, John?
Right. Yeah, exactly. Because if we assume on the front end that they are perfect or they're so amazing, we will be disappointed. And when we're disappointed, we have a tendency to react. And it's usually a negative reaction. But seeing people for how they are, knowing that they have good sides and bad sides, they have good days, they have bad days, knowing that they have negative traits as well as positive traits, because nobody is perfect. If we go into relationships looking, with no expectations, I think we'll be much more successful finding better friends, or it'll be easier finding friends, easier finding, a romantic partnership, or, people to work with in business. It's just assuming that. And, you and I are a great example of that. If I'm not trying to brag on us, but I know that you have flaws, and most all of my flaws, because you're my counselor for a long time. But in spite of all that, we developed a good friendship because we learned to work together, but we're aware of it. And those times,
it's based on honesty.
Say that again.
I didn't mean to interrupt. I said it's based on honesty.
Correct. And that's a great point. Being honest with the other person, but more importantly, being honest with yourself. Because it's easy to find flaws in other people, but the truth of the matter is we have flaws too, and we have to admit, well, I've got flaws, and if I've got flaws, they've got flaws. So you can't hold one person's flaws up over somebody else's. It's just junk. We all have it. We all have stuff that we're dealing with. And the thing about the downside of the roller coaster is all these things that we've talked about lead to what? What the actions that we start making after this.
That's right. We're let down.
Right.
Right? We're let down. We start to poke and see if we can find a weakness in the dam there. We are let down, we're confused, and we feel betrayed because they didn't present themselves or act the way we thought they were supposed to act. And again, this is completely oblivious, these people, to what we think and what we feel about them, unless you keep communicating those things, which I wouldn't suggest. But this happens, and you expect them to be Superman or Superwoman, and they're not. They're just a person. They're just people. In some cases, or most cases, not much better or worse than we are.
Right. And we've started this conversation talking about how it's a roller coaster. You begin and you set people up on that pedestal, and then you realize that there's flaws, they're human, that they have positives and negatives, and then they start going down the roller coaster. Another really great example is Jenga. Once you build the Jenga, with those interlocking blocks, you put people on top of the Jenga, all those blocks, and then you realize they're human, and then you start nitpicking, you start criticizing, and every time you criticize, you pull out one of those blocks, and over a period of time, there's holes in that whole tower, that whole pillar that you've built for those people. And eventually, you're going to keep picking and pulling and criticizing and critiquing, and you're going to hit that one block, and the whole pillar is going to fall down.
Yep. We don't give them the benefit of the doubt anymore, do we?
No, we don't.
We begin to find fault.
Right. And that's one of the things I've dealt with. I know you've dealt with it too. I've dealt with it in dealing with relationships. Especially people get married, depending on, I was going to say when they're younger, but they happens when they're older too. I've seen it with people, especially when they get married, because their eyes are full of stars and cupids and hearts, and then they get married, and then the honeymoon's over, and all of a sudden that person's living with them 24/7, and they discover that the other person, may leave underwear lying around, or may leave the toilet seat up, or maybe doesn't clean up after themselves. And then it's a whole different ball game. And that's when you start criticizing, critiquing, and then, that's why the divorce rate has a tendency to be very, very high, or one of the reasons.
Yeah. And this person then is no longer a potential friend. They're no longer a potential business partner or a love interest. Now they're just deeply flawed. And with John's analogy of the Jenga, every one of those things that I just mentioned, there are pieces in the middle that we start pulling out. And now they're so deeply flawed that we want them out of our lives. So that's the down of the roller coaster. Right?
Right.
So how many of us do this to people?
I think a lot of us do it, even though we don't realize it. I think more of us do it than is not.
Yeah. We're in my business, we are trained to look at a person and to judge, not judge the things that they do or say, but be able to sort of see what kind of a person they are and how I can help them. Not to tear them down, but what I see is something that I've developed over the last, 15 years since I've been doing this. And I'm sure, John, you've seen a lot of this in what you do.
Yeah, I have.
Yeah.
I'm in the middle of reading a book right now called Leadership Deception. And the whole thrust of the book is how in life we deceive ourselves. We make assumptions based on how we're living our life, and we're not necessarily putting ourselves in the other people's shoes. And so we constantly make decisions every day of how we're living, and we assume that everybody else understands what's going on with us. And so if you just extrapolate that out, if everybody does this, everybody is living their lives and not necessarily putting themselves in other people's shoes, and then causing so many different roller coasters to be, up and then down. And I think our relationships suffer certainly our business lives suffer, our marriages are suffering because we're not being honest and we're not doing those things. And we're not taking that view of other people, how you are much more, I hate to say clinical, but really looking at people just honestly as just people with no expectations.
Yeah. Hence, we all do it, and we have to try to stop ourselves when we reach the bottom of one of the roller coaster tracks.
Right.
Stop ourselves from going up, because the fact is that we're all people. We're all flawed in different ways, and no one is really any different.
Right.
You know, just different in how they are, how they walk around and talk, and how they look. But everybody's the same.
Right. And it's unfair when we do that. It's unfair to them. Ultimately, it's unfair to us.
Mm-hmm.
We have to meet people eye to eye and not expect anything from them, and then give them a chance to offer whatever it is that they're wanting to offer to you, and be grateful for when they do.
Yep. You have to be grateful for people. You can't expect a perfect fit in this world because there's no perfection in it. There really isn't anything that's perfect. There's no body that's perfect. So we have one choice: get used to it or wind up being a sociopath. It's the only way you can do it. You have to get used to it. And getting used to it means stop, projecting your expectations on people. And that includes someone who's very close to you or someone that's just an acquaintance. Because you look at how they look and you discern these things from, I don't know what point of view, but whatever it is, it's very destructive.
Right. So that's how to survive the roller coaster. Being honest, having no expectations, and just being real with people and meeting them eye to eye. I think that's one of the best pieces of advice. And at the end, just be grateful. Just be grateful that people want to be around you. They want to be a part of your life. And, maybe we won't build as many roller coasters or play so many games of Jenga.
Well, that's the hope, John. Hopefully we all can do it.
Right. So if you have any questions or concerns, or you want to maybe poke a hole in what we're talking about, we would love to hear from you. Why don't you send us an email at questions@reallifepodcast.com. And you can also find us on Facebook and Twitter. You can find us on Facebook at Real Life Podcast and on Twitter at Real Life Cast. Thank you, Lou, for all your expertise and your guidance and your wisdom.
Well, thank you, John, for the same things.
You're welcome. And so thank you for watching or listening. Visit us at thereallifepodcast.com. And remember, we encourage you to choose to be awesome, because when you choose to be awesome, you truly will be. Have a great week.
Bye-bye.
All right.
Thank you for listening to the Real Life Podcast. Find out more information and sign up for the Real Life Podcast newsletter at reallifepodcast.com. You can also learn more about our hosts, Lou Carfisi at lifecarecounseling.net and John Donahue at johncdonahue.com. And remember, live your life to the fullest. And as always, we want to encourage you to choose to be awesome, because when you choose to be awesome, you will be. Have a great week, everyone.